Hi guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Mila and today I'm going to talk about leaving when you're being disrespected and why it's so important to leave and exit the situation when you're being disrespected. So here is the thing. When you stay in situations where you're being disrespected, your self-worth starts to go down and your self-esteem starts to crumble. And it's very dangerous for your self-esteem because you're going to start feeling really bad about yourself. Disrespect can be in different forms. Disrespect can be when you're being criticized, when you're being ignored, someone points out your flaws, someone sort of like devalues you in front of everyone. I feel like one of the most painful forms is when you're being disrespected in front of a group of people, because then if you're letting someone else disrespect you, you're betraying yourself. And imagine if that happens in a group of people, then and you cannot stand up for yourself, then you'll crumble. And the more you allow these situations to happen, the more you're basically drowning yourself. You're drowning yourself in this sorrow and grief and feeling completely worthless. Okay. I wanted to share my personal story when, certain things happened to me, and I wanted to tell you a little bit about how you can react, okay? I do understand that leaving when you're being disrespected can be challenging because sometimes if you cannot speak up, you cannot speak up for yourself, then leaving would be the best option. But even leaving, right? What does it mean to leave? When you leave, when you're being disrespected, leaving. Let me tell you a story. When I was in Dubai, I think I was around maybe 23 years old, 24, when I arrived. And so I formed a group of friends, that I was surrounded by. And these were friends of my ex. And so they were Arabs and they would always speak in Arabic. To me, that was very disrespectful because if someone speaks English, they don't understand the language and they keep talking in Arabic, then that is clearly very, very disrespectful. Why did I stay? At that point of my life, I'm 31. At that point of my life, I did not really have very stable sense of self-worth. It's something that I've been building over the years. And I feel like at this point, if I'm being disrespected, I'm not only just going to walk away. Sometimes it depends on the mood. I can walk away or I will challenge the other person. I will challenge the other person to extremes because I feel like people need to be told. People need to be told when they're acting like pieces of shit. So back to the story. And by the way, guys, when someone is disrespecting you and acting like that means that they're bothered by you. That means they're probably triggered by you. That means they feel, funny enough, they feel like they are somehow less than you, which is really strange because you would think, no, if someone's disrespecting me, they normally put themselves above you, and therefore you end up somewhere there. But in general, a normal person with strong sense of self would never disrespect you. That would just not be in the person's mind to do something like that. So one way or another, they feel some kind of competition. They feel they are somehow triggered. And I feel like the only people who would allow themselves to just disrespect people left and right would be somewhat on the narcissistic spectrum, on the, vulnerable or grandiose narcissism. Most likely grandiose narcissism, but then again, it could just be very immature people, okay? So anyhow, by the way, there's healthy narcissism as well. There's a spectrum, and there's healthy narcissism as well. So I don't want to like change your views on narcissism, saying that it's only like good or bad. No, there's such thing as healthy narcissism. Just FYI. In that situation, back to the story, I allowed myself to be disrespected. Okay, I allowed myself to stay in a group of people who were, would not speak English, right? They would continue speaking Arabic. They really lacked common sense. In addition to that, they would say certain things behind my back that I knew about, but I never confronted them. I never, not that I never confronted them, I didn't leave the situation. It took me some time, a while to leave the situation. And funny enough, that when I left the situation is when I started, first I went into coaching, and then I went into, it was ICF-based coaching, then it was strategic coaching. And so when I started becoming a bit more self-aware, I realized, like, what am I doing? Well, what the hell am I doing? These people are only dragging me down. And you know what's funny? Like, the more I stayed with this group of people, the more my self-esteem plummeted. It just went down. Why did I stay? And why are you possibly staying when you're being disrespected? And obviously, you would know when you're being disrespected. You would know that. You would feel like you all of a sudden you feel like a personal attack on you, right? And it could be non-verbal. It doesn't have to be verbal. Like I said, it could be very unconscious. It could be slight respect that sometimes is very hard to catch, but you know, deep inside, you know, because you don't feel comfortable. You don't feel good about, you know, the whole situation, these people, you don't feel great, okay? So why did I not leave? I did not leave because I remember I had this fear of being alone, right? I was not comfortable with the whole idea of being alone. Right now, being alone for me, it's like a blessing in disguise, because there's so much I can accomplish when being alone. With other people, sometimes people, they can, you're distracted. When you're surrounded by people, you can be distracted from something that you want to do. But at that time, I did not know what I wanted to do, and I did not really have that purpose, and I was not, you know, so for me, being alone was like suffocating feeling, like, oh my God, I'm going to be alone, right? I'm going to be all alone. And so therefore, I stayed there. I stayed in that situation. One of the things, okay, and why would you allow someone to disrespect you? It could be, possibly could be the fact that you're so scared of being alone, because when you're alone, what are you going to do? Maybe you have abandonment trauma. Maybe you new country like I was, and you don't know anyone, and so you'd feel like, okay, what do I do? But let me tell you, there's so many ways to meet other people. There's so many ways to there's so many other people who would be nice to you, who would be respectful to you, and who would respect you for who you are, or at least who would be on the same level as you. This feeling of like loneliness and not aloneness. Loneliness is something that you would have to really work on, because that feeling is probably keeping you. See, when you're alone and when you learn to be alone, this is when you become very powerful, because then you don't care. A slightest disrespect from someone else, you walk away instantly, because you don't care. You're more comfortable being alone than with someone else. That is the ultimate power. And that is the ultimate place which you must reach in this life. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck in this, it's a cycle in a way, because you don't feel good about yourself. What happens when you don't feel good about yourself? You attract people who will disrespect you. You allow them to disrespect you, and then you're self-loathing, you hate yourself, you betrayed yourself. And then it doesn't stop. The cycle doesn't stop unless you pull yourself out, okay? But when you pull yourself out of these things, and trust me, I know what it's like to pull myself out of these situations, because my whole family was toxic, okay? Right now, I only speak with my mom, dad, and my one cousin, even though I have 1,000 cousins. And I have a very, very big family. My family is huge. I don't speak to anyone. Unfortunately, my grandma passed away, so the other grandma, I don't speak to her. So see, I know what it's like to pull myself out, because when I notice that toxicity, that jealousy, disrespect, etc., I realize that, okay, that's not something that I want to be a part of. I will not allow anyone to treat me that way. There's no way it's happening. And so it's very important then to, pull yourself out. And so I pulled myself out of friendships, long-term friendships. And you know what's interesting? It all happened around the same time. It all happened within like 2 years. I remember when 24, 25, when I noticed I started becoming very self-aware. I started pulling myself out of, I pulled myself out of that relationship, or from that friends group they were never my friends. Then from my family, a few other friends. And so I basically cut a lot of people out of my life, and I was practically, I wouldn't say I was alone. There were always people in my life, but it's maybe not so close, right? Not so close. And it took some time. I took some time to develop connections. Mind you, what was very interesting is when I was living back in Australia, I had very respectful friends, very, very nice friends. But the moment I landed in Dubai, all these things started happening. And, you know, I'm so grateful for that, because this is one of the best experiences in life you can have, is when you have to cut a lot of people out. Because you know what it means? You're stepping out of the victim mentality. You're no longer willing to be allowing to, you know, being disrespected. You're no longer allowing these people to, you know, poison your life, your mindset, your mind, your heart, your soul. You no longer allow that to happen. It's one of the blessings of life, is when, I'm telling you, when you cut a lot of people out, that says something. That says you're probably going, you know, next level. It's some next level stuff, you know. If you're watching this and you're thinking, ooh, I need to cut that person out, I need to cut one person out who I'm being disrespected by, then there's probably not just one person. If you have someone in your life that's disrespecting you, then that probably means that you've been allowing that to happen for a very long time, and probably that's not the only person who needs to be cut out of your life. Because why would people disrespect, right? Why? Because they feel, people are like animals. They feel when you're weak. They sense your weakness, and they want to crumble it, they want to crunch it, they want to, you know, they want to destroy you in a way, because they feel that you're weak. They feel that you're weak. So when you cut people out, you need to make sure that you're really, really, really cutting them out. Really cutting them out, and not allowing that crap to come back in. They're probably sensing that you're weak. They're sensing that. But when you withdraw your energy and you learn to be alone, and you learn to thrive in your aloneness, not loneliness, no. Loneliness has negative connotations. Aloneness, you thrive in that. Then you become untouchable, honestly. You become unshakable, untouchable, unbreakable, you know? And that's what I wish for you to happen to you. So anyhow, thank you guys for watching. That was a quick video, and I'll see you in another one. Bye.